Hi, welcome to this week's edition of Blue Suck. Again, John, Dave, and myself. We're going to look back over all of the last round of games to the Pro 12 and look forward to our semi-finals and also a quick review of the Pro 12 season. So, boys, a fairly comprehensive victory against Treviso at the weekend, 50 points to 19. Disappointing that we let in 3 tries at the end.
Yes, we vanquished the sweater-making behemoth that is Benetton Treviso. Yeah, it's very hard to be on it in those games. I mean, I always say you can't really win those games. You can only just lose them.
Not lose them.
If you win, you're expected to win. If you win well, you're expected to win well. And anything else is just like it's just people taking slices out of the cake.
Well, when you look at Ulster going over to Ospreys and putting 40 odd points on them, we're at home and we only put 50 points on Treviso, and they didn't, But anyway, job done. And despite being in rubbish form and making a mess of Europe, we topped the league. So
yeah, you see, that's
what more do you want?
I think, John, that can be a major revelation to a lot of people that we have actually topped the league. We did come on top of the league, as in every other team was below us. Because if you read the media, you wouldn't fucking know it.
That is true. But fairness, from our own high standards, we haven't been looking as pretty as we used to look. So
no. I mean, we're not the team we were, but we're in the position we always were in.
Yeah,
we have assumed the position.
Maybe some would say that is because the Welsh regions in particular and the Pro 12 in general have not been up to snuff.
I think we'll come back to that in a while. Let's just review the games first. But
sorry, Jason.
Sorry, but like
sorry, sir.
We got the reward of
Jason's putting some much needed discipline on us now. He's returned,
no,
isn't he?
He's right. We tend to be meandering
that was
too
lacking
much
last week, I thought.
Yeah, good man.
Well, anyway, we rewarded with a home semi-final against Ulster, which is going to be, as you mentioned, like Ulster seem to be the form team at the moment. Went over to Ospreys and got a fairly good result over there.
Yeah, I was impressed with them. And what's that, 4 on the bounce? Their form away from Ravenhill hasn't been brilliant, but it was last week. So they're coming into form at the right time. All their players are fairly fit, apart from Nick Williams. Couple of others.
Tommy Bowe's out now.
Tommy Bowe's out for the season, but he hasn't played with them much this season, so he's not a loss in the sense.
Yeah, it's not exactly as if they're having to fill a hole that they weren't expecting to have to fill.
Plus, it's back rowers they need. Nick Williams is the big loss for them. However, they've beaten Leinster once outside Ravenhill this millennium, and an away team has never won a Pro 12 semi-final. So history is in our favour. However, Ulster and Glasgow might have something to say. They might want to be the first team that's won an away semi-final. Who knows? I'm actually not feeling too bad about our chances, even though they stuffed us up in Ravenhill. I think we might come in a little bit under the radar and give them a bit of a fright, but we shall see. That might be a discussion for next week.
It's not the first time that Ulster will have come down to Dublin or taken on Leinster expecting to win and then not doing so. I mean, it wasn't all that long ago they got fairly handily beaten themselves in the RDS. So obviously they've improved since then. I don't know if we have, but the thing is, can they?
Yeah, and the other statistic that I didn't bring into that one is we don't do losing in the RDS very often. We haven't lost in the Pro 12 this year. We're the only unbeaten side at home in the Pro 12. Even Connacht have lost 1 to Ulster, coincidentally. And I think everybody else has lost more than 1. Glasgow, I know, have lost 2. Scarlets and Edinburgh. So, we have history of the league. We have history of knockout games. We have history of the RDS, and we've history against Ulster. So all of those things are in our favour. Yeah, what's not in our favour is our form.
Yeah, and one thing that's really glaringly obvious though is our lack of tries. Like, bearing in mind we scored 8 at the weekend to kind of to boost
paper over the cracks.
Yeah, well, I mean, even still, we're the least prolific of the 4 semi-finalists. We've scored 51. Like, the next team is 60 for Connacht, 61 for Ulster and 68 for Glasgow. But we were 51, but we scored 8 instead against Treviso. So if we'd only, do you know what I mean? Prior to that game, we were a good bit behind.
Yeah, well,
for the last decade, only Aironi and Calvisano scored fewer tries than Leinster in a European season. which is
It's pretty poor.
I'd expect a scratch side made out of players of our standard to do better than that. That's diabolically poor. But having said that, when you get to this kind of game, none of that matters. It really doesn't. Leinster are really,
but it frames where they are.
it does. But you also have to say there's other things there. I mean, one thing Leinster are good at, whether Leinster are good or Leinster are bad, Leinster are good at knockout games.
Yep.
Even last
Well,
year,
they have been.
even last year against Toulon, you know, a team like Leinster that was of dubious quality, and the issues around the coaching we all know. Even Toulon, the highly expensive, highly assembled squad, found it hard to knock us out. On the other hand, Ulster are really, really bad at knockout games. Certainly when they're facing Leinster, they are. So you've got these whole kind of psychological issues.
They must hate playing us.
Oh, I'd say so.
I mean,
I'd say so. Yeah.
Like a lot of their seasons have come to an end after playing. I think 3 of their seasons have come to an
Recent
end.
seasons,
Yeah.
but it might be a bit of a Croke Park in 2009
Well,
moment.
might be,
every
of course
record
not.
has to come to an end.
Yeah.
That's the other side of it. I mean, Ulster have to win in Dublin sometime. They have to beat Leinster in a knockout game sometime. They have to win a trophy sometime.
Do they?
Well, you know, these in the generals, in the larger scheme of things, I don't think they're going to do it this year, though. I just don't. I think that there's.
Well, my dream final is Leinster and Connacht, and they're the two home teams. Statistically, they're going to win.
No, my dream final is Leinster, and I don't give a fuck. But I think that Connacht are also going to come down. I think Leinster have something in. They're not going to be content with how they've been playing. And you see guys really getting their thick on and beginning to play well, actually. Like, I mean, Rob Kearney had started to play well again until he got injured. Johnny Sexton played well. Ben Teo and Gary Ringrose played well. Once they got into their stride, they started to play well. A guy who'd been criticised beforehand, and I know it's only Treviso, was Geordie Murphy. He played really, really well. He's not an orthodox 7. He's never going to be. But I'm telling you one thing: if you were looking for somebody to play the Josh Cronfeld shadow role, he was brilliant. I thought.
But I
The
thought,
link man.
I thought in that game, Easton Z we just dragged it because it wasn't really kicking on like during the game.
Oh no, he
And
upped the energy.
He just dragged that team over the line to get the 4th try, and because all of our moves stemmed from him really.
I don't know if Leo Cullen has the coaching nous of somebody like Michael Cheika, but do you remember in that 2009 season when we went down to Thomond Park to play Munster and we kind of rested O'Driscoll and Luke Fitzgerald and we kind of, we did got a bit of a hide, and I think it was 25-6 or some score.
It was
around that.
25-6.
And it's
26-5.
whatever, one of those anyway. And we kind of went in a little bit under the radar then into Croke Park. I wonder. Well, there's two things. I wonder was Leo Cullen looking down the road and going, well, it doesn't really matter if we win this game in Ravenhill, and if we get them feeling a bit cocky, we're quite possibly going to have them in the semi-final in a few weeks. I don't know.
I don't know if he's.
I
I don't know if he's. I don't
other
know.
thing, though,
I don't
think
know
so,
if he's
because look
quite
at-
that Machiavellian.
But
now.
look at the table the way it finished. We finished on the exact same points as Connacht. We just had one win more than them, and we finished 1 point ahead of Glasgow, who
Oh, I know things
But
could
like,
have gone.
So I really don't think
That's
that
right.
we throw a game in the same
Oh, I don't mean
competition.
throw it.
No, but like you might have thrown a game in the Pro 12 when you're kind of fourth, when there was no playoffs, you'd qualified for Europe the following year, and you had the carrot of playing in a semi-final of the European Cup in a different competition.
There was an element of playing a certain way in the Pro 12 in the lead up to big European matches, where you didn't want to leave anything on the pitch that could be used for video analysis. This is a different situation. I don't think Leo's quite that Machiavellian. However, having said that, I would say that there are things. I would hope to God
Held
that there
back.
are things held back, because to be honest with you,
That's the point I'm making.
if we
Held
are
back.
what we have seen, we are in trouble.
Well, the other aspect of that, right, just to finish off on that, is that in that game in Ravenhill, we didn't really need the win. It wasn't do or die. It was do or die for Ulster. Ulster were going to fall behind the Scarlets and not make the playoffs pretty much if they lost that game, because they're going away for the last game, and if they hadn't got a good win under their belts, they were in trouble. We didn't really. We knew we had Treviso at home, and I'm not saying anybody was throwing games or doing, but maybe there's just that little 2% of lack of commitment in the back of your head that isn't voiced or isn't conscious, but it's there because you don't absolutely need to win the game. There's no backs to the wall.
Missing 17 tackles.
Exactly, and knocking the ball on left, right, and centre, and
there
dropping
were
balls.
extenuating circumstances. I mean, obviously, we discussed the refereeing performance.
Mm-hmm.
There was that played into it. There was obviously, as you say, the missed tackles, drop balls, all that kind of sloppiness.
That's the kind of sloppiness that happens when you're not just 100% on your game, when you're not really revved up, you know. And I think that might have been the case, that they just weren't. And that Ulster, I'm sure Ulster are not consciously thinking, it's going to be easy, but there might be something, a little screw in the back of their head, that if we hit them hard and really put them, you know, put the fear of God into them, as somebody might say, that we just catch them off balance and unnerve them a little
Traditionally,
bit.
what we've done against Ulster in finals is hit them hard and hit them early.
And often.
Well, no, not necessarily often, but we have got good early starts against them. We did in the Heineken Cup final, obviously, and we did in
Pro 12
the
final.
Pro 12 final. So there is that, and of course the question with that final is, I mean, we'll be talking about the refereeing as well, because Ulster could not deal with John Lacey's interpretation of the ruck that day.
And they would have won the game if it hadn't been for Robbie Dyack going try line. What?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But they for some reason, so there's all these things feed into the thing. I mean, you talk about form. Form is actually only a small element of the whole, if you like, the whole tapestry of a knockout game. And semi-finals sometimes can be very cagey affairs, you know.
Of course, they always are.
If it is a cagey affair, that works in our favour.
I think so. It's a big, mad running rugby open field game. I think we're dead.
Well, then we just bring on Noel Reid.
Yeah. Well, you know, if they're doing the running, I wouldn't have no Reid.
Well, you see, here's the thing now, and I'm not saying I'd start him. I wouldn't. But everybody's saying, you can't start Noel Reid. Sure, if they start running at him. But the thing is, if you've got Noel Reid on the pitch, how are they going to stop him running at you?
Them, yeah.
I mean, that's the people. Sometimes people have to remember that, you know, the guy isn't that. Sometimes you can actually, why worry about what the opposition are doing? Why not make the opposition worry about what you're doing?
Yeah.
Well, just a concern is obviously the injuries to Rob Kearney. You wonder if Luke Fitzgerald's out. Will O'Brien be back?
According to
GT and the IT.
And indeed all its dispatches, Luke Fitzgerald is available for selection.
And Sean and Josh van der Fleer won't.
And Josh van der Fleer won't. I thought I said somewhere that they might get half an hour out of Sean. I don't know. But we need somebody. I mean, okay, you can go with Jordy Murphy again, but you're making yourself a hostage to fortune, because no matter how well he plays, he's still a guy playing out of position.
And you've got Dominic Ryan on the bench, who's
Ryan,
also
not
been
a seven.
playing
Not
out
a
of position at
I mean,
seven,
he's a
brilliant
specialist
at
six.
Yeah,
I mean, he's a specialist six. And he's been very good. Actually, he's been superb for us this season. I mean, I haven't been a huge fan of his, but I thought this year he's been very, very good, because he's been playing in his best position, I think.
Yeah.
But we need somebody now. Whether it's Sean or whether they use Dan Levy, I don't know.
That's a very interesting one. I mean, apart from the odd dubious penalty he gives away, he's a great player.
Yeah, he is a great player. But the other side of that is Dan Levy likely to be going on a tour to South Africa during the summer? Is he in any way possible to be going on a tour to South Africa in the summer? No, so he doesn't need the game time. I mean, yeah, but you can laugh. But I mean, do you think that's not going to be a factor?
I don't know. In a final, honestly, I think that's a bit of a leap. I mean, in a final, you're surely allowed to do whatever you want.
Semi-final.
Or sorry, a semi-final.
Yeah,
a knockout game,
yeah. So the other game of the weekend was Connacht against Glasgow. We got a nice win there in the rain and wind in Connacht. So it showed that they can mix it up in their kind of offloading game, but also tough it out in a forward kind of battle.
I think they really I didn't see the game live, but I think they really did a number on Glasgow. They unnerved them.
Yeah, Glasgow weren't expecting.
They hit them hard, and they weren't expecting the physicality. I think they were expecting them to be running around looking pretty.
To a certain extent, it was a reversion to an old style Connacht pack.
And then they shot themselves in the foot.
Oh yeah,
with your man diving over the ruck.
Yeah. Did you see it?
It did.
It was ridiculous, wasn't it?
Yeah,
but
it was just stupid.
The sad thing though was
the whistle was blown at that stage. No, I mean it was born of stupidity.
But the sad thing was, or the disappointing from Connacht's point of view, was that happened with 30 minutes to go, and they still didn't really. I know the conditions were rubbish. They didn't pull away, and they were kind of holding on for dear life towards the end.
Well, everything we're saying about Leinster's performance against Ulster away, I'm sure Glasgow fans somewhere on Glasgow Talk TV are saying the same thing about Glasgow's performance against Connacht.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I've already heard a few Glasgow fans saying, "Oh yeah, we'll take these guys in the. Doesn't matter that it's away. We'll take these
Yeah,
guys in
but
the
we
semi."
were mullered by Ulster in Ravenhill.
Mm-hmm.
Connacht beat Glasgow, but they didn't muller them.
No, but I think that Glasgow are drawing more confidence.
No, but
That's what I mean.
But
That's
that's
what I
fair
mean.
enough. Like,
Yeah.
but I mean, I think that they have more cause to than we do, to some respects. I mean, we touched on our injuries, and particularly like you're tossing a coin there between Geordie Murphy and
Dan Levy.
and Dan Levy or
Get the mentality right, get the mindset right. It won't matter.
Dippy, you know, and like none of those lads, to be quite honest, are of the same quality that used to play in our back row or fellas that are injured.
True, but like I say, get the mindset right, and that won't matter as much. Hype the guys up to the right pitch, and that's really where it's going to be won and lost. Whoever's got the best set of belief inside their head and the best equipped to execute their game plan. And if that game plan is keeping it tight, weather's going to play a role as well. Obviously, if it's lashing rain or if it's brilliant sunshine. Which you just never know, because somebody told me it was going to be brilliant sunshine. It was yesterday was supposed to be the best, and we're into a heat wave. So who knows what it'll be like by Friday week? It could be either one. So that's going to play into it. You'd probably say that a wet day might suit us a bit more, but it's hard to know. Their big danger is their back line, and their big weakness is their back row, and maybe their front row.
But what if you just that game again in Ravenhill? Like they were just willing to attack. They wanted to spread the ball wide, but when they did, they were attacking with depth and at pace. Yeah. Like we've been one-dimensional this entire season.
Well, there's two things to take into that. Sorry, just one is yes, they were. They went wide and they like you said, depth and pace. But the second thing is we weren't really trying to stop them that hard. We weren't very successful in trying to stop them, which we have been in other matches. I mean, for whatever reason, the defense just collapsed. Now. I do agree with you. I mean, we've looked very, very staid in attack, very staid. The only time we've actually looked exciting in attack was against Treviso, and it was Treviso.
You can't win, like you say, Dave.
Yeah, but it's amazing. It's just when you see the way, say, Bundy Aki is playing for Connacht at the moment, and what they're doing with him and the way they're using him. We have a guy a similar kind of build. But we don't get as much out of Theo as they're getting out of Bundy Aki.
That's very true. But, is that making Connacht more one-dimensional by having him as if him and Ali Muldowney are out, where are Connacht going?
Oh, well, look, they've nowhere
they
near
the stars.
They're nowhere near the strength and depth or the stars
of any other
Irish teams, of course. But what they are doing is they're making the absolute most out of all of those players, and
there you go. Mindset.
They're
That's
using
exactly
them
what I'm
to
saying.
their advantage, and they're like even when they were down to their fourth or fifth choice out half during the season, they still stuck to the sort of the principles of how the team wants to play, and the guy just fitted in. And in Leinster, like we've been slotting in like I remember with Joe Schmidt, just take one part out and put another in, and it should all work seamlessly. This year we've been taking fellas out for internationals.
We're taking 8 parts out and putting 12 parts
but even
in.
still,
take 21 guys of that kind of team and see how well it does.
Look, I appreciate that, but it's not just the 21 guys, Dave. It's injuries during the year, and then bringing in guys, and they just haven't seemed to mesh whatsoever. Like we've just been pretty ordinary for a lot of the season.
Well, I think Pat Lam said last week that comparing Connacht, who don't lose very many internationals, people are always making the point, they have a consistent team. Says other teams have the bloody internationals to lose. You're better off having them and losing them than not having them at all.
Well, like, I mean, we can bring in,
but
say. Richard Strauss, in it. If Cronin is away with the Irish team, or you can bring in Fergus McFadden, or you can bring in Geordie Murphy. You know what I mean? You're bringing in guys.
But the counterpoint to what Pat Lam is saying is that it is a big advantage to have all your squad training together, playing together, I mean, okay, they lost 5 guys to international for one game. You know, we've been losing a whole lot, and it's not about the quality of player. It's about the getting the team to gel as a whole, which is something he's done, and he's had the players to do it with that have been available to him all season. You know, apart from Robbie Henshaw. You know, and you know, yes, there have been another couple of guys, but he's the only one that's been missing for every international, away for the World Cup, away for the Six Nations. You know, every single one. We've had loads of guys like that who've been away the whole time. So it's continuity is a huge thing. You know, getting on, and we've shot ourselves in the foot a few times and kind of blew in the face saying it about how we needed to get all our players playing together.
How many times have we talked about momentum? I mean, and if you look back to say in January, middle of January, we were saying if we were playing our European games again, the way we're playing right now, we do a lot better in them. And then what happens at the end of January? You lose all your guys.
Them all again,
and we never got that momentum back.
Well, we had a very good period over the Six Nations. So that was when we actually.
Yeah, but
it was January and February and March.
But
and
once those guys came back,
we've
never got it. We never got back to where we were in over December, January. We never got back there when those guys were part of that, and then they went away. And because you can't switch it on and switch it off like a tap, like we were saying about, is Cullen that Machiavellian? You can't actually do it. I mean, it's hard to do to actually say, okay, we're not going to play any rugby for a while, and now we're going to play rugby. You can't do it, and it's the same if you're dropping guys in, dropping guys out. Fellas are getting like you say, everyone is injured. I mean, you're talking about everybody expects 15% of your players to be injured at any one time. That's the standard, if you like, overhead.
I wonder, will Gervin Dempsey have a few little tricks up his sleeve though that we didn't show, because we bloody well didn't show much in the back line. And Ulster, you were saying that there was an interview given by one of the Ulster's coaching staff saying, "Oh, we just have to knock them over because we know where they're all going to be." So you know, maybe there are a few little tricky dicky moves that he's going to unload onto them.
I think one of the problems is Gervin. It's
anger.
Gervin's first season.
Yeah.
And the stuff that worked against semi-pros isn't working against the elite teams, you know. So he's going to have to kind of think his way out of the struggle. I've no doubt that he can.
Maybe he has.
But maybe he has. We'll see on Friday week. But hopefully he
Can't
has.
wait. There are 2 great semi-finals shaping
up.
I have to say. Really, most neutrals would say that Glasgow Connacht should be the final because of the team that have played, 2 teams that have played the most entertaining rugby and the most open rugby. Willing to give it a go rugby, whereas we're kind of more the safe option. Again, out of necessity, because we haven't had a continuity of selection, we've had to be a little bit more basic, shall we say. And Ulster have been, away from home. They've been last game accepted. They've been fairly pedestrian away.
They've been
from
up
home.
and down.
So
all season.
You know, you'd have to think that the neutral would want whoever wins the other match to win the league, rather than us or Ulster. I'll be. If we get through this,
flannel wearing neutrals.
Yeah. If we get through this game and we end up in the final against Connacht, I will be so happy that I won't really. I'll obviously rather win, but if Connacht win, I'll be so happy for them. I'll be thrilled. It'd be like a Leicester story.
To a certain extent, it'd be nice to beat Glasgow in Scotland.
I think there's nearly 30,000 tickets sold.
Is there?
Yeah. There's more.
26 last week, so
there's
we sold a few thousand.
There's more sold. There's more tickets sold for this game than any other Pro 12 final. And I think the one with the largest crowd so far was the one we played Munster and lost down in Thomond Park, where there was 26.
I was sell out, I'd say, was it?
Yeah,
26,000. Well, there's going to be an allocation for both teams that are in the final, so
don't see there been a big shortage of tickets.
Oh, no, I'm not saying it'll be a shortage, but they'll sell quite a few. Once the 2 teams are known, quite a few more tickets.
I'm sure, yeah, because both clubs will take their allocations.
So you could see 35,000,
maybe 40,
maybe even 40.
If
Glasgow are in it, you might see 40.
In a way, even if Glasgow don't make it, they've actually done quite well, because out of one semi-final, they've got a team who are known to travel for finals anyway in Leinster. A team that are only across the water and have huge numbers of people in the city and environs, right, in Ulster. In the other semi, they've got Glasgow, who are, the
home team, basically.
And they've got Connacht, who might be making their first final.
Yeah.
I mean, in terms of organisation, you're pretty much guaranteed a decent turnout anyway.
You're guaranteed Michael D. Higgins and Enda Kenny will be there
Yeah.
for sure. I have to say though, Glasgow kind of shot themselves in the foot in that game with Finn Russell gone back to his flakiness, and the other guy
he left
doing the stupid
6-9 points behind.
No,
wasn't it?
which are even the stupid. I mean, for example, even the red card. What was his name? Pulafisi.
Pulafisi. He shot himself in the foot.
That was a Glasgow penalty.
But and there was no need for it. Like
Yeah.
the whistle's gone. He got the penalty, as you say.
So
The whistle had gone. They got the penalty, and the ref could have taken a different look at. If he wasn't looking for the even worse foul play, he might have taken a harsher look at what Muldowney had done in terms of a card sanction. Because they don't like stamping referees.
how are Connacht doing for injuries? Who's out?
Well, they took off Bundyaki with a few minutes to go, and he was like
He'll
Wait.
play if he's
He'll
even
play,
on
yeah.
one leg.
Well, he did, didn't he? He looked like he was on one leg for a while. He kicked through and he was tackled from behind, and he seemed to be limping a little bit from then on.
Actually, just speaking of you go completely out of back to the Leinster Treviso game, one thing that I noticed was the handling was much better. The skills were way up. If you think of Johnny Sexton's try,
Yeah, beautiful try.
it doesn't matter
There's a
who you're
few
playing.
beautiful tries.
If with passing and timing like that, it doesn't matter if you're playing
Yeah.
Treviso or Toulon. They're not putting a hand on you. So there was. Sorry.
Well-
Anyway, I just wanted to.
No, that's absolutely.
Well, in fairness, did you see the last try where the full back just walked disinterestedly past him as he was going over the
Noel
line?
Reid.
Noel Reid's try, yeah.
Although
Maybe it wasn't the last one.
I've seen better players than that do that. Do you remember Emil Entomac's absolutely no effort whatsoever to get a hand on O'Driscoll for his
third try.
his
Wasn't
third
it?
try. But anyway, sorry, go back to
Yes.
Glasgow in Scotland, because be honest.
Well, one point you mentioned there about the large crowd over in Murrayfield. Today, Edinburgh have announced that from the 1st of January they're going to start playing the matches in Watsonian's ground, which I think I was in an Ireland A match in '99 there a long time ago, and
1899.
but I think it was
Back
in
then
that,
it was Ireland.
I think it was that ground, and
It was
it
Ireland
was
B.
similar to kind of what Donnybrook is, like one stand on one side and kind of a terrace or a grass terrace, but like ideal for them, like they're getting 4,000. Even at the last game of the season in Edinburgh, there was 4,000 in Murrayfield. Like it's a very big stadium to put 4,000 in it.
And we're disappointed with 10.5 in the
If you
in the
have
RDS
Glasgow have shown
for Treviso.
Glasgow have shown it. We said it before about Glasgow. Connacht have shown it with the improved sports ground. If you have a good compact ground that you can get full or near to full more often than not, you'll start to build something.
Yeah.
And
But
that's
there's also the scarcity factor, Oh, it's hard to get tickets.
Yes,
well, we better get
exactly.
tickets straight away.
and there's always
Yeah.
biscuits in the tin. What's
Exactly.
the point of biscuits?
One. I think a journalist in Sunday Independent, Brendan Fanning, mentioned there might be a possibility of Connacht moving their home semi-final to Thomond.
Yeah, can't see it.
Never. But in the Pro 12.
Yeah, it's a few people who've said it, but I can't see it.
In his article, he said that they had made inquiries to Munster, but I don't know whether that's going to happen.
I would be astonished if that happened. Because it would.
Well, I'd say it might be too short notice to try and.
Oh, I'd say Thomond Park. They
Logistically.
could probably turn around to Thomond Park. I mean, it's a modern stadium and all that.
I don't know what I mean is for them to try and sell that to get it all
Yeah.
done, the deal done with only 2 weeks to go.
Yeah, their supporters would be rightly pissed
They'd be
off.
raging, yeah.
Rightfully pissed off as well. So, no, I don't think that's going to happen.
I'd be annoyed for them.
Yeah.
Because, I mean,
I'd be outraged. I'd write
They-
a stiffly
I
worded
mean,
letter to the
whatever,
Times.
Whatever about in Europe and stuff like that. In the Pro 12, you kind of earn the right to have your own game. You know, that kind of a way.
And particularly, we've had 5 seasons now of playoffs, and every year, as you mentioned earlier, John, the home semi-finalists have won. So why would you give?
Jeopardise that.
And don't forget, like Thomond Park is probably one of the best rugby stadiums in Europe. Why give the advantage? Saying, "Oh, well, isn't it great? This beautiful facility. It's just as I'm sure it's equally as good for the away team as it is for the home team." Whereas I heard that they put they put the opposition
Over the clan
over in the
terrace.
clan. They can't hear themselves talking. There's people looking over their shoulder at their laptops.
Yeah.
They make it kind of a bit tricky for them. Whereas Pat Lam seems to be in some kind of building looking out a
No,
window.
he's all ensconced. and he has comely maidens dancing at his crossroads and everything.
Dev was a Munster man.
That's true.
Well,
Limerick.
speaking of Munster, we'll just briefly chat about them.
Okay.
They got their
Dublin,
victory
Limerick.
over Scarlets at the weekend. That guarantees them qualification for the European Cup, which is, I think, a good thing for Ireland. I mean,
Absolutely.
we might
Probably.
like to have a little bit of a laugh at them, but to be honest with you, as you mentioned before, Dave, if they're not in that competition, then it's coming out of the budgets of Leinster,
Yeah.
Ulster, and
The other
Connacht.
side of that, though, is it's incumbent on them to actually spend the money properly.
Well, that's very true, but I think
Well,
they're going about it the right way now. They've got a director of rugby in. They might have got rid of some of their chaff, shall we say, in their squad.
No, I would say that's not fair to some of them.
Not some of them.
I don't
but
think it's
some
I
of
don't
them.
think it's fair to Dennis Hurley, for example.
No, of course not. Not
or
him,
maybe to
but
Kyle
there's,
Sheridan.
but there's
or,
some other
you know,
ones.
some of the ones maybe have not been as good as they could have been. And some have been unlucky, I mean, with injuries, some of them.
it's supposed to be a plan on behalf of the IRFU to thin their squad a bit, to get rid of their kind of backup players and force them to play their academy. And force
Their
them to
academy?
have an academy.
Their academy or our
Well,
academy?
Their
An
academy.
academy.
An academy.
Which may be comprised of people
Well,
from other academies.
I was watching Against the Head the other night, and Donal Lenihan was on, and Donal Lenihan knows exactly what's going on. Like, he's so
Yeah.
close to both Munster and the IRFU. But anyway, he was saying that, maybe this debt on the stadium should be, they want to pay it off in 10 years.
Mhm.
He was kind of saying, well,
Maybe
we,
50.
yeah, exactly. Like, most people take a mortgage
So
out
is
of
that the debt?
20 or
Isn't
25.
that the stadium that was being delivered debt free?
Yeah. Well,
It's been
Things
debt
might
free
have
every
changed.
year on and off for
Yeah.
the last while.
so, I suppose we've come to the end of the regular season of the Pro 12. 4 Irish teams qualified. So as you
And one from every other.
as you mentioned, Dave, the IRFU tooled up Connacht.
Yeah.
I said that the IRFU would tool up Connacht to take away Wales too, and that's what they've done.
Yeah.
But what if Wales decide to try the same thing? I guarantee the Welsh Rugby Union won't spend the money as well as the IRFU do.
Yeah, but that's because the Welsh Rugby Union don't have an input in the same way
Yeah.
into the teams. They don't own the teams. Like,
Yeah.
But it is disconcerting that a country with that has won Grand Slams, like whatever it is, 3 or 4 Grand Slams in the last 10 years, has one qualifier, and like that means that, like, our league, right? Like it or lump it, it's our league.
Mhm.
It doesn't have the same
Quality.
backing. Well, it's not. You see, it doesn't have the same backing as for big TV companies in France or in England, and therefore, if you've only got one Welsh team playing in the European Cup, it's going to be very tricky for the 3 other Welsh clubs to hold on to their young stars coming up through the ranks.
It's going to be tough for all of us when.
Exactly.
the
But
better-
if they don't have the opportunity to play in the European Cup,
There's a couple of advantages that Ireland has that Wales doesn't. For a start, we don't have another part of what is essentially the same country, only bigger across the bridge, which Wales is always that huge draw of England. The other thing is, I can't shake the feeling that when the IRFU decided to concentrate everything into 4 clubs, that the WRU decided to concentrate everything into one club, and that club is Team Wales.
Yeah. Well, they've no control now anyway, so they can't.
That's the
put
one club they
genie-
have control over.
Yeah, they can't put the genie back in the bottle with the regional with the
yeah,
regions.
but just like every good player that Wales is producing is just going to
going
go or has gone. And like,
Look-
look at the amount of guys that have gone that play in France,
Yeah.
and they've come back and they don't go back to Wales.
Some
they
of
go
them
back
coming
to
back.
England. They
Well,
go-
some of them are coming back.
very
right?
few of them.
Well,
Jonathan Davis
again
has gone back to the
Okay,
Scarlets.
right, one. But then you
A
have
few more.
say their entire front row just ups and goes over to the Premiership. Whether there's fellas coming back, going from France, say Roberts playing for Metro, or goes to Harlequins.
Isn't Paul James going back from Bath, or is he? Yeah.
Yeah.
Or has he already? Is he?
Well,
He's still in Bath this season.
he's back. He's in Bath this season. He's
Yeah.
back next season.
So
Is Matthew Morgan coming back?
yeah, well, he's only come from Bristol. Though.
Yeah.
We were still in still
Playoffs.
haven't qualified for the top.
No, they're in the playoff final.
Yeah, they've been in that every year.
Mm-hmm.
Still haven't managed to
Playing
get through.
Doncaster this year.
Um,
I think they might manage it this year.
the other thing is though,
Doncaster don't have the facilities to get through, isn't
No.
that right?
it's not just
Well,
Wales.
it'll have to go through the courts.
It's not just Wales. It's all of the Celtic nations. Like the more Bundy Ekis and whatever go on show, Like the better Connacht do, and the more high profile rugby they play, the more likely they are to lose the likes of Bundy Aki or whoever. Some of their rising stars could easily get their salary could be trebled to go to, or quadrupled to go to France. I know that Ali Muldowney's gone to Grenoble, for example. There's just one example. There's a key member of their squad off to France, and that could happen more and more. I mean,
but how is he Irish qualified?
No.
So he isn't.
Yes.
Is he?
Is he?
it's questionable. He was Scottish qualified, and I think he sat on the bench for an egg. And there's some kind of,
If he was selected if you're selected in the 22/23 for your national team or next national team at either 15-a-side or sevens, you are disqualified.
there's a grey area there. I'm not sure, was it the A team?
If the A team was playing either a national
Exactly.
team or a next national
Exactly.
team,
Yeah.
then that could be the thing. But generally, you can accept an A.
So maybe the IRFU, for example, don't see him and weren't prepared to go match his salary. On the other hand, if you've got Bundy Aki, now they've let Henshaw move, which is fair enough. That was his decision. But Aki's got another year of his contract. At the end of that season, he's qualified to play for Ireland. Whether he moves to Munster, Ulster, Leinster, or stays in Connacht is up for conjecture.
Or goes to France for
Or goes
huge
to France.
dollar.
But the thing is, for him, and it always has been, the draw of playing international rugby. That's why he moved to Ireland, because he wasn't going to get. He didn't feel it, or he felt that there was people ahead of him. He said this in an interview before.
I know, yeah.
That he wanted to play international rugby, and if he wasn't, he didn't see himself in the frame in New Zealand. That's why he wanted to come to Europe.
Is he a New Zealander?
He is, yeah.
Yeah, his cousin is Sonny Bill Williams.
No, the reason I'm asking is he a New Zealander, or is he travelling on a Samoan or a Tongan passport? The reason I ask is because if he's a New Zealander and he's here by the IRFU and they're sponsoring him to stay, then that's why he'd be allowed in Europe. But if he's not, if he's on a New Zealand passport, he doesn't have EU. He doesn't qualify under COPAC, so it might be more difficult for him to move abroad. That's all I'm saying. Just wondering.
The thing about it is, though, if he's really in the shop window up here, the Kiwis could be looking at him and go, oh, hold on, mate, we might have a look at you for the All Blacks. Fancy joining the Chiefs again?
Never
We'll
know.
stump up a few quid.
It doesn't really work that way, though, does it?
No, generally not.
No, you know.
No, I think
They don't rate
I don't-
European rugby, so they ain't going to say, "Oh, your man's playing good for."
Also, I don't think.
they don't have the money, you know.
Also, I don't think Bundy Aki's that kind of a fella, to be honest with you, from what I've seen of him and how he plays and how he carries himself. I don't think he's that kind of.
He's really bought into Connacht.
Yeah, I think he. I don't think. I mean, I often joke about Munster luring him away. I don't think they have any chance.
I'd love to see him stay in Connacht.
I don't think they have any chance of luring him away.
I'd love to see him play for Ireland.
If
and stay in
they
Connacht.
get him and Jay Keenan qualified, that's one hell of a coup for them both. I mean, everybody talks about Bundy Aki and whatever.
Keenan's the same. He's same 3 years, isn't he?
Jay Keenan is was the superstar of his under 20s team. He was
He's
absolutely
been unlucky with injuries, isn't he?
He was absolutely 100% going to play for the All Blacks 90 times. He was going to replace Richie McCaw. And then he got injured. And he was unlucky with injuries for a while. So actually having him at Connacht, if Connacht get him fit, he could be an absolute shoo-in for the Irish team.
What about Munster getting Tyler Blaine fit?
Yeah.
And him and the other lads can have a shootout for 10. Doesn't he qualify as well? If
he's brought up here as a project player.
So, could be interesting.
We kind of spoke about Leinster's. We might as well have a review of our season so far. Like, we said that we topped the league, and some people sort of are very negative, even towards the team in the media and so on. But we were absolutely dreadful in Europe. Like, we won 1 of 6 games. Like,
It's fairly shocking, all right.
There's a couple of ways of looking at a season in terms of judging success. Right? If you judge success by how we did in Europe, our season's been an unmitigated disaster. One of the worst seasons probably since Leinster turned professional.
Yeah.
I don't think there can be any argument. Now, I don't happen to judge a season.
Did we ever only win 1 game in Europe?
I don't happen to judge a season by that
Ever?
can't think.
narrow kind of a guideline. But if you're the type that does, Jesus.
Forget it.
Yeah. This season has been, to a certain extent, a roller coaster within a roller coaster. There's been ups and downs within ups and downs. I mean, our European season has been dreadful. Parts of our Pro 12 season have been very, very good. Parts of it have been relatively poor. Our home Interpros, we were excellent in all of those.
Yeah.
We were very good in a game against Munster.
Mm-hmm.
We were okay against Connacht.
Yeah.
And we were dreadful against
Ulster.
Ulster. So, dealer's choice.
Well, we won the Munster one.
Mhm.
It's the only away Interpro we won.
Is it too early to have a view on how the two coaches, Cullen and
Fresh
Dempsey?
early.
They first, we've said this all along, a World Cup year, nobody wanted to take on Leinster in a World Cup year because they're going to lose so many players. Only Townsend was already in there for a few years in Glasgow. You know, they wouldn't have got anyone else in there either. So, as I've always said, I'd rather have a year developing Leo Cullen as a coach with a view to getting a second year to give him a proper shot, rather than having a year when we had Matt O'Connor and we knew he was going at the end of that year and things were just stagnating. So we've considering all of those things, we've had a reasonable season, and if we get a bit of other blood in there, like a bit of a skills coach, or where we're already advertising for a head of fitness.
Well, that's the other side of it. The other side of it is we are no better than we were last year at a very large number of things.
We have looked a little more expansive, though, you know.
No, we've looked a little more expansive.
Looked,
we obviously haven't been, because the tri-count talks for itself. I mean,
true. But we've looked like we were getting shit together.
I'd rather get shit together.
We
than
didn't
look like we're getting shit
We
together.
didn't get it together.
Well,
But
the two positives I'd see is Josh van der Fleer and Gary Ringrose, and both of those have come
Ross
true.
Maloney,
Well, I know those guys have. And
Tracy.
yeah, no, I agree. But they've just got some game time, right? I'm talking about these two lads are now. If everyone is fit, they're probably first names
Right up
on
there,
the team
yeah.
sheet. Josh van der Fleer's got captain in the Six Nations. Lots of talk, even from Drico, saying that Ringrose should be in the squad. Now maybe he was a bit young for the Six Nations.
He's
but
only played 90 minutes of European rugby.
I
And
think
one
he
of
was
those
doing
was-
exams though, wasn't he?
Oh, he was, yeah, but I'm just saying in terms of
He
experience.
was making his
Yeah.
communion.
You know, but
But whether I don't know, but they may bring him down to South Africa to give him experience
don't
within the
see
team.
it.
It'd be the last place I'd bring
I'd
him. Like,
I'd bring him to New Zealand or Australia before I bring him to South Africa.
yeah, it's just. I mean,
They'd ate him alive. They'd put him on a barbecue with some boar wars.
He's a tough kid. He really is. He's tough and wiry and all that. But South Africa is just
Too
that
hard,
little
too
step
hard,
too
yeah.
far for a 21-year-old
It's-
lad.
they'd eat him up
who's
and
a
spit
little
him
bit
out.
willowy, you know.
The thing is, I mean, this time last year, if you were doing a review of the season, you would have said, "Well, we still can't maul."
Yeah.
Has that really changed? Our scrum,
Not really,
our
no.
scrum is decent.
Mm.
Nothing's really changed there.
Our Scrum's probably not as good as it was last year. Our Scrum was a bit of a weapon under your man Caputo.
Well, I initially thought the Fogarty wasn't doing a great job, but I think he improved. I think having consistency of selection. I mean, it is not a year that Cian Healy will feature heavily on his highlights DVD.
Obviously.
It won't get its own disc. But on the other hand, Peter Dooley is an absolute monstrously
There's
good
another
player.
player we could mention.
But you know, there are things. If you can't maul and your back line is static, then your set pieces are in serious trouble.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because you can do nothing off a line out, for example.
Yeah.
And that hasn't changed since last year. The attendances are still as poor.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of.
There was 10,000 at the match against Treviso, and like, people would say, "Oh, it was Treviso."
There's 10,000 the week before as well,
It's
which
the
was
last. It was the last game of the
Last
season.
game of the season, yeah. You think people would show up. Yeah.
nice day.
It was raining all day,
No, it wasn't.
It was raining in the morning.
but it was like we've all been at matches against Treviso where there's been better crowds, but like the trend is certainly downwards.
Yeah.
So
It
this
was
team,
a good strong team selected
but
as
this
well.
team needs probably to win the Pro 12 this year to solidify because they have been a bit of a decline.
It could go two ways, though, you know. A win the Pro 12 could paper over some cracks and leave them not so hungry next year. Losing the Pro 12 might
I think
them up
I think
for
how
a
they
more-
went. I don't think that there's a danger of that after what happened in Europe, after
Suppose.
the abject humiliation of our European campaign.
Yeah, you're right, Dave. Let's just fucking win the Pro 12.
So I don't think there's any danger of them allowing the Pro 12 to paper over that. But at the same time, it's nice at the end of the season to say, okay, we haven't been great, you know, and these guys are realists. They look at it, they say we haven't been great, but you know, at least we did something. We
got a trophy.
We did that thing. We've got a trophy. Now we can build on that. Because if you remember, Leinster started by winning a Pro 12 in 2008, and that started everything from there. You know, and indeed in 2008 and parts of 2009, Leinster didn't play all that crash hot well. You know, so there are elements of that as well to it.
But like that's what 8 years ago. No one really remembers how we played that year. All I remember is the name on the title.
Well, that's it. That's the thing. That's what I'm saying. I mean, people get dazzled by the glare of silverware. You know, it does cover a multitude. The only thing is if you let it to cover too much.
Yeah, but I think sort of getting to semi-finals or quarter-finals of, say, the European Cup might have actually, like, if we got out of this group this year, average in the league, say like last year, you know, you got to the semi-final, but there were serious problems within the team. Like even Shane Jennings, who had probably, you know, no skin in the game because he was on his way out. He was going, there's something wrong here. It's these guys aren't. They don't have the same hunger or whatever. They're not behaving in the same manner that they should be.
I think Johnny's had
and Johnny's kind of
intimated
similar
towards that as well. Yeah.
So it's not fixed one season on from Jane Jennings saying
that's true.
we're still in the same bother.
But the thing is, at least, you know, with guys like Johnny and Issa there's something in the dressing room that will try and fix it, or hopefully be able to fix it. I mean, I keep saying it, I said it last year and I'll say it again. No organisation in sport, in business, in any field of endeavour
Is on top forever.
And no organisation can cope with the turnover in personnel that Leinster Rugby had in that 12 to 18 month period between halfway with 6 months of Joe's reign to go and then the following 12 to 18 months, right? There was a huge turnover in staff, and to a certain extent it's still going with Dan Tobin taking the Gloucester job at very short notice, which is a bit bewildering, but anyway, I don't know what's going on there.
He's there a long time though, so maybe
it's just to use the phrase at short notice is odd. But anyway,
he was assistant to Cowman. I think he was.
We've lost our last two heads of fitness, for example. Now that's what we've done. We've lost our scrum coaches, forward coaches, head coaches, backs coaches, skills coaches. We've lost people from the executive. We've lost people from the press department. We've lost
marketing.
We've lost everything. You know, we've lost lots of. I don't know. I mean, Jason, you're a number cruncher. You're an Excel bod. Can you think of any business that could cope with that kind of turnover of staff?
Well, unless you've got sort
of senior staff.
Unless you have some sort of planning in place for them. I mean, people retire and leave, you know, all the time. The graveyards are full of people who are irreplaceable.
Businessmen, yeah.
But does it look like Leinster had a plan in place to replace a lot of them?
No, it doesn't, and that's the worrying thing. And you know, even when they went and they sacked Matt O'Connor or whatever happened when he left.
That was at short notice too.
I remember being on the airplane coming home from the match over in Marseille last year, and to be quite honest with you, no one wanted to talk. You could see the CEO walking around, and there was very few people wanted to make eye contact with him. But the thing was that at that stage, you just knew they're going to get rid of him. But you just presumed that they would have had somebody waiting in the wings to come in and replace him. But clearly they didn't.
It's poison chalice in the World Cup year.
Well, but like look who Munster are after getting in. Do you know what I mean? Like
he's not coming in the World Cup year.
You know that.
I mean, look, the point.
We haven't announced anybody yet. Maybe we've got a coach in the wings.
But the thing is, like,
we've got a scrum half in the wings, so you know maybe there's a coach in the wings too.
But that's one of the things that I have found a bit disturbing over the last few years is we've had very underwhelming, and you know they're saying that season tickets are struggling and our attendances are declining. But sometimes a big signing can do it. Like we brought back Johnny Sexton, but we kind of feel, well, we developed Johnny Sexton. He's only coming home now. We're after getting Henshaw.
Should we brought back Johnny Sexton? How many games has he played in the Pro 12?
Probably very few.
10.
Has he? Has he even played that many?
Maybe it's 10 altogether. Is it?
Yeah, I don't think. I mean, there are guys who played a lot. I don't think he's played all that much for Leinster since he's come back. To be honest with you.
Yeah. So like, I just think the signings have been underwhelming. Where you know we brought back Issa, and again. It's almost like because we brought him back and he was missing for 2 years, just like Johnny was missing for 2 years. We want someone new, want some new blood coming through, but want somebody to go, wow, I'm actually seeing this guy in the flesh. Only seen him on telly or only seen him play for his national team.
We're really hamstrung on that because obviously Dan Carter's not coming over because he's getting the big dollar from France, and even if he was to say, okay lads, I'll pitch up at Leinster, the IRFU would probably go, Dan Carter? Are you,
You see,
are you
we don't,
insane?
we don't
Do we
need that.
have-
Issa Nasiwa
I'm just
wasn't Dan
pulling-
Carter.
I'm just pulling the name. I'm just.
I know. But what we need, what we need is someone who will electrify the place, both on and off the pitch, like Issa Nasiwa did. Issa Nasiwa wasn't Dougie Howlett. You know, okay, people within the game knew what a really great player he was. But for most people, most of the 18,000 people in the RDS, 17,000 people wouldn't have had a rashers who he was.
Your man who wrote the article in the week before Croke Park didn't know who he was.
Yeah. You know, and
Do you
that's,
remember that?
but he electrified the crowd, and he became a focal point
Yeah.
for Leinster and for the support. And you know, you need somebody like that. If you get the right person, doesn't
Rocky
need-
Elson, Brad Thorne,
Yeah.
you know.
you
Plenty
got
of
those
examples.
guys. You got those
But
guys,
they're,
superstar
they're
guys.
superstars from World Rugby. We don't necessarily need it. But
No, I don't think we do.
But we haven't had anyone signing. We haven't had a big foreign overseas signing. Like even say Ben Teo, unless you're an aficionado of rugby league.
Rugby League.
You'd never really have heard of Ben Teo. Now he's turned out to be a really good signing and a very good player.
Great
And
guy,
unfortunately is heading off to pursue his international career over in England. But we got 2 good years out of him, and it's only a pity now because he's developing into a bloody fine rugby player.
Yeah.
That we're losing him. But you want somebody that you gotta go, wow, he's actually going to be brilliant. I can't wait to see him.
Yeah, well, who knows?
One guy actually who, I mean, he looked really good in the Ulster Bank final was, you know, and one guy that we might end up seeing a good bit was Joey Carberry, who
Playing outside the guy that Dave thinks plays for Connacht.
Oh yeah.
Matt Darcy.
Matt Darcy. Yeah.
You keep calling Matt Healy
Healy
Matt
Matt Darcy.
Darcy. Yeah. But Joey Carberry, yeah, that was great, wasn't it? And somebody told me, I didn't see the semi-final, but somebody told me he was even more impressive, which sounds hard to believe because he was very impressive.
But like, I remember a few years ago when
And the other side of, sorry to interrupt, but the other side of Matt Darcy was a young guy who's joining the academy apparently next year, Conor O'Brien, who's also looked very, very spectacular there beside, you know, so there's stuff coming through there.
Yeah. No, I was going to say, like a few years ago, you know, as a backup, we ended up signing the Crusaders backup to Dan Carter, Berquist, wasn't it?
Berquist, yeah.
Like, and unfortunately he broke his arm or his knee.
His knee in his first match.
So we barely got to see him play. But, you know, we could have somebody like Carberry that will, Johnny might only play 10, 12 matches for us next season. But to give this guy the opportunity to play.
You want to. I mean, there are other taxes on the rank as well. That has to be
There
said.
are.
I mean,
Ross
Ross Byrne is there. Cathal Marsh is there.
Marsh, yeah.
I mean, it's funny. Everybody says, "Oh, who's going to be next?
Good
Is
to
it going to
see
be
it.
Ross Byrne or is it going to be Joey Carberry?" Well, at the moment, it's Cathal Marsh. He was the guy who got picked last Saturday.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, he's perceived as having a lower ceiling than the other two of them. Whether either of them reach their potential, you know, he may end up the best of the three of them.
I'm always
hard
worried
work.
about. I'm always worried about young players, especially at
Not
half
how it
and their
looks.
ceilings, because I remember how much lower Rogers' ceiling was to Jeremy Staunton's.
Yeah, well, there you go. Perfect example. There's a guy with work ethic out the wazoo, you know, whereas Jeremy Staunton may have been more talented in his raw state, but never hit the heights for whatever reason, you know.
But I suppose at the end of the season, we always hear who's leaving. And there was quite a few on a list that was publicised at the weekend. And one name that sort of sticks out was Isaac Boss.
Yeah,
One of my favourite
What a
players.
man.
One of my
Like
favourite
he
players.
gave us, I don't know how many years, maybe 6, 7 years.
He was one of my favourite players before he even came to Leinster, just as in terms of in the Irish squad, because he was a guy I liked.
I think he joined us after the first Hanging Cup win, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
Well, yeah, he's everybody remembers his try in Croke Park and a big beaming smile.
Yeah.
He's been around since 2005 when he left the Hurricanes to come over and join Ulster, and I think it'd be really fitting if he got wheeled out at the Ulster Leinster game, you know, just to say
Very
thanks.
popular with the Ulster crowd as well.
Yeah,
In fairness,
like the guy is just great. You know, he's a great guy, great pro, great player. And
we were talking a couple of weeks ago about when Leinster were in their pomp. We'd say in 2011, how we were able to change the entire front row, and then we were able to change Sean, Geno, and Lockie and move them around. The other thing we were able to do was Bossy and Redden.
And bring on one international scrum half for
We'd
now.
start with one and play a certain way, and then the other guy would come on and change it completely. But the funny thing was, if you recall, remember we said this a couple of times, that because both guys didn't want to come off or didn't want to concede the jersey, that both really started becoming more proficient at what was perceived to be the other guy's particular skill set.
Yeah.
Boss became a much better mover of a back line and a much snappier passer. Redden, on the other hand, became much more attentive
Physical.
To what his pack were doing and to moving them around the park. And it was a brilliant situation to watch two guys just feeding off one another and making one another better. But I have huge amount of time for that. I mean, we'll lose Redden next season, so to a certain extent we'll be losing the package. But losing Boss is huge. He's been brilliant for Leinster. He was there on our very best days. And one of the reasons why we had those good days was him.
Yeah.
On top of that, we've lost Kevin McLaughlin.
Yeah.
We obviously knew it, but it's final as well. Another guy who was brilliant for us, without maybe the acclaim that the others got.
No, he was there all the way through. Apart from the very first win, he was there all the way through the next two, I think, cup wins. And Magners Leagues out the wazoo.
I'd advise
Stop
anyone
using that
to watch
phrase.
Leinster play Munster in the RDS, the 30-0 match.
Mm.
Because if you remember, that summer had been dominated by one topic: how were Leinster going to replace Rocky Elson? What were we going to do? And what we did was we didn't try and replace Rocky Elson. But you watch Kevin McLaughlin play against Munster that day, and you'll see how we didn't go about replacing Rocky Elson. He was just brilliant that day in a completely different role than Rocky played, but absolutely superb. I'd say that would be his finest match for Leinster for me, anyway.
Well, it's hard to.
He was very good against Leicester in the Aviva
quarter final.
He was very good. He made shit of their line out.
The sad thing is that there's very few. It's getting less and less now of the players who were involved in that those two finals in 11 and 12.
When you think about it, kind of the juxtaposition of Leicester used to always use Tom Croft at 6 to make hay and the opposition 9 out, and we kind of turned their tactic against them.
All those guys that we missed. If you look at a list of the players we've used since we won our first Heineken Cup, I think it's in the 90s.
56 this season
in our senior squad. I'm not talking about academy guys. I'm talking about the actual full senior squad. So half of them.
There's an enormous turnover
of
players, isn't there? Absolutely enormous.
Half of them aren't playing for the club anymore. So, but that's sport. You can't.
But it just seems that rugby is such an attritional sport that their careers are short, and they don't really get. Obviously, they don't get the rewards that footballers get.
Well, that's it. They don't. But that's the thing. I mean, sport is always the king is dead. Long live the king. I mean, we're old enough to remember. Well, Kevin Keegan leaving Liverpool. How will he ever be replaced? Hello, Kenny. And it's sport is like that. Whether it's how are we ever going to replace so and so, and then
bang,
we have so and so times 100.
Yeah.
Well, unfortunately, we'll see. Brian O'Driscoll hasn't been so easy to replace.
No.
We have high hopes.
We got to see him play, though.
Yes.
We certainly did.
Anyway, boys, as ever, thanks a million, and thanks very much for watching. Cheers.